Master Reddit, subscribe for more videos.
What do insanely poor people buy, that ordinary people know nothing about? After selling plasma, I would walk to Wendy's and eat the crackers and ketchup for dinner. You can get new car parts from the junkyard for virtually nothing, with added discounts if you remove them from the junkers yourself. I had a 12-year-old car in college, and when it blew a tire, I went to the junkyard and found a decent set of tires. Bought all four for $70, which reduced my food budget to $16 for the next 2 weeks. Some lady in the grocery store saw me with a calculator trying to figure out how much ramen I could buy with $16 and handed me a $20. It made me cry. I'm glad I'm not poor anymore. But I'll always remember that lady. Edit. Thank you everyone for sharing your stories. I'm glad there are people like this in the world and that so many of us have experienced their kindness. And for those of you talking about how much ramen $16 can buy, let the record show I was probably buying other necessities like tampons or flour or something. That is so sweet. We have been there. A woman once bought my daughter's Tylenol. She was about 2 years old, running a fever. I had $10 in my bank account, but they didn't accept my card. The bank had put a hold on it. My husband was in boot camp and I had switched states. I was staying with my brother at the time. I was in tears and had no idea why my card wasn't working. All she asked me to do was pay it forward. And we have. The first 4 years of my life were spent in abject poverty. As a child, I would ask my mom if we could get a candy bar. She would explain to me, at age 3, that we could get the candy bar, but if we did, it meant we couldn't afford a 2-liter of Coca-Cola. She would phrase it like so: if you get the candy bar, it'll be gone in a few days, but if you get the Coca-Cola, we can have Coca-Cola for the whole week. Amazingly, I knew enough to understand that Coca-Cola for over a week was a better deal than 2 days of a candy bar. As a side effect, I was regularly told no when I asked for things I wanted. Mostly Lego sets or He-Man toys. Around age 6, my father's stake in a mineral prospecting company finally paid off. Turns out he had been putting every dime he had into it since before I was born. We went from surviving on mayonnaise sandwiches to having 2015's equivalent of $10,300 per month in income. My little sister was around 2 or so at this time, and she was getting everything she wanted. For the first 6 years of my life, I had learned that asking for things I wanted would always end with a no, so I never asked for anything. My parents weren't able to put it together until my grandmother got very sick and came to live with us. The whole family was out shopping, and my grandmother knew I loved Legos, but I didn't ask for a set of them. Meanwhile, my little sister had a Barbie doll and a My Little Pony in each hand. She stopped and asked me, "Rathadan, you don't want a Lego set? Mommy and Daddy always tell me no, Grandma. We can't afford them." I have only a very vague memory of this, but before she died, my grandmother told me this story and said that my mom broke down in tears in the middle of the store, sobbing. My dad had a look of defeated failure on his face, according to her. Apparently, it simply never occurred to them the reason I never asked for anything was because I had always been told no. For Christmas, I got 3 Lego Technic sets. When I was a child, Burger King ran a special kids meal where it was 2 mini burgers that were attached to each other like a weird conjoined burger experiment. Sometimes we would go. My dinner was 1.5 of the mini burgers, my mom's dinner was the half I didn't eat, and she would fill up on the free refills of soda. My mom would buy a small personal pizza for my brother on special occasions, like if he did really well on a test at school or something. Even though it was only like $2, she couldn't afford anything for herself, so she would eat his leftover crust. She told me he would always tell her, "Mommy, are you hungry? Go buy one just for you," and she would just say, "No, I'm not hungry, I only want a little snack." She only just told me this a few years ago, and I was shocked because by the time I came along my dad had gotten a good job and we lived just like anyone else. I had no idea that my older brother grew up like that. Lots of school systems do free lunches for kids under 18 during the summer. When I was a kid, I remember my dad taking us to get lunch at the school, then go play disc golf, soccer, or do something else free and fun. It was a blast and I had no clue it was because we were poor. Dollar theaters, and sometimes they have a free afternoon/evening show for kids with the purchase of a parent ticket. Many movies were seen by the 3 of us for $4 with a shared popcorn and Coke. My dad was amazing at making us feel rich on basically nothing. Edit. A lot of people seem to pointing out my dad was irresponsible for having children without being financially prepared. My mom left us when I was 6, little brother was 2. She had her own stuff to work out, but she wasn't there to help out. My dad was an assistant teacher at the time, working to become a teacher, which was plenty to support us with her help, but alone and suddenly without any help he struggled. He ended up getting a second job, but we were still pretty poor for several years before he got his teaching position. My dad was also king of this too. Our bonding nights consisted of a couple rented movies from Blockbuster, turkey bacon on the George Foreman grill, and instant cappuccino powder and milk. He would save up the entire time between visits, and when my sister and I visited, we would go on one big adventure. One time we went horseback riding, another time we went cave exploring. We didn't have fancy camping gear either, we had his basic issue field stuff from the army. He would make the coolest forts and we'd spend a day/night out in the woods and play euchre or rummy by the campfire. My sister, my dad and I played a game called Super Spy, where my dad would leave clues, draw maps, pretend to be a character and give confessions. My sister and I would have to figure out the plot, who was the bad guy, and save the day. My favorite thing we ever did was follow the creek out on my grandparents' land and discover these little waterfalls. He bought a disposable camera and took my picture in front of every one of them. We made a colored map on poster paper, colored a legend, and he glued the pictures of me and my waterfalls onto it. I would lead my cousins on trips along the creek with my super spiffy map me and my dad made. I get overwhelmed at times thinking about how hard he tried to make the time we had together awesome and never about what we couldn't do because we were too poor. I drove on a flat spare to a discount tire here in Austin one morning. My husband's, then boyfriend, car was our only means of transportation and I had to take home to work first. I got to Discount Tire to get them to patch my flat and it was the same thing, the tire was balled to the mesh stuff, and another tire was, too. We had $23 to our names, we had just, thankfully, paid our rent, and I asked him to please just fix the flat and we would deal with it when we could. He told me that he could, in good conscience, let me drive on those tires, and then gave me 2 tires, just gave them to me. He said that he couldn't stand the thought of a tire blowing out on me, so he would take care of it. It should be noted that I'm not even a cute girl. We are much better off now, and whenever I need anything tire related, I go to that Discount Tire. Gotta ask, did you buy your tires from them? Yeah, every time. In fact, my wife, son and I moved away to Brooklyn, New York. Last fall, when making our final visit home for the year to visit my wife's fam, I drove, just so I could get new tires there. They're all still really nice guys. I have been both very poor and very comfortable. A lot of very true statements already posted here, but here's what I have noticed. When you are broke, you can't plan ahead or shop sales or buy in bulk. Poor people wait to buy something until they absolutely need it, so they have to pay whatever the going price is at that moment. If 10 packs of paper towels are on sale for half price, that's great, but you can only afford one roll anyway. In this way, poor people actually pay more than others for common staple goods. Edit, holy cats. Thank you for the gold. My office only has a unisex bathroom, so it has the facilities for men and women. Naturally there's a tampon machine, and tampons are only 5 cents. Once a month I'll work late, get a roll of nickels and fill up a grocery sack with tampons for my wife. Good man. I learned how to be resourceful when I was dirt poor. That skill set is still with me. Nowadays, I'm no longer poor, but I could not put myself to buying something that I do not need, and if I did, I feel like shit. Some people get a high from shopping, I get that shit feeling when I buy something. It's not the things we bought. I grew up in a level of poverty, in the entire 1980s and some of the 1990s, that modern politicians will swear to you doesn't occur in modern America. After all, we have food stamps and welfare, and anyone still poor after that is obviously just a lazy fucking drug addict bum. It's not the things we bought. We lived on powdered milk and rice and ramen, and before that, those old wonton soup packets that I just realized don't exist anymore, and government cheese. Tuna can after tuna can. Bread from the discount rack at the local bakery, about 9 minutes away from growing mold, but hey, at least it was only 19 cents a loaf. It's the things we scavenged. Hauling food out of the dumpster at 7 to 11, because they threw away piles of chip bags that were a day over their expiration. Manager caught us one day, they apparently told the employees to stab a hole in each chip bag after that. NBD, we just had to sniff each bag to make sure nothing was contaminated. Checking neighbors' trash bins, rescuing half a damn pizza some idiots had ordered the night before, then threw away after a handful of slices. Hauling in furniture from alleyways, my littlest sibling, my sister, received a twin bed mattress that had a grotesque brown stain on it, looked like someone had shit a gallon of wet feces onto it. No fucks given. We scrubbed that fucker with bleach over and over, and she slept on it for years. And then there were times when the welfare checks or food stamps didn't arrive, and the trash bins were not producing food. I grew up in a fairly rural area when that happened. I know that in winter, gray squirrel tastes fucking gross. Sure, people from the south can claim that their brown and red squirrels are delicious, but I would rather eat shit out of a pig's ass than eat another bite of goddamn squirrel meat. Or jackrabbit. Or goddamn dandelion greens. I guess I'm just saying that it's not what insanely poor people buy. Since they're insanely poor, they can't fucking afford to buy anything. You can keep the electricity and rent paid, or you can. Nope, there is not other choice. Food? Medicine? Clothing? Furnishings? Blankets? All of this is shit you can pull out of the garbage. I was so poor once that I would go to Long John Silver's and order a water and crunchies, which used to be free, then sit there and watch the people that would dine in. It was amazing how little they ate. And then they would leave without dumping their tray off in the trash. Fries, hush puppies, chicken, fish. All untouched. No, I didn't eat a piece that was bitten off of. I once saw a woman order a 2-piece fish and more for her kid, that ate one hush puppy and a few fries, and then left the rest of it there. It was the best I had eaten in weeks. Glad that's behind me now. Powdered milk. I once worked in a call center and an old lady called almost in tears that cable went up by $1.50. Her line that she repeated more than once was that she couldn't afford fresh milk and had to buy powdered milk. Unless it's due to a lack of refrigeration available or some sort of allergy, only the very poor would buy powdered over fresh milk. We drank powdered milk growing up. It was terrible. Sometimes my mom would mix a bit of cream in to make it taste better. It didn't work. Ugh. Thanks for bringing up this painful memory. I had a really odd childhood. Until age 9 my family would have been classed as upper middle class. Then my father left and my mom went batshit crazy. From 9 to 18 we were dirt poor. I remember being 10 years old and our weekly treat was to go to the Little Woods Cafe. I think they went bust, and they did a 99p 5-piece breakfast. We shared that among my mom, brother, sister, and me. One of us got the extra item, we'd take turns. As an adult I have made sure my children will never know poverty because of excellent memories like that. Nothing motivates you more than memories of fighting over a solitary sausage. Same situation in my family as well, with my dad leaving when I was 9. He spent an astonishing amount of time and energy dodging the courts mandating him to pay child support. And when my youngest sister turned 18, he called her on her birthday to say, "Hey, since you're 18 now, can you tell your mother that I don't need to pay all the back child support I owe?" Rent-to-own furniture. Craigslist furniture. Sent from my $30 Craigslist couch. Couches are risky, may have tenants in them. A buddy of mine went through a tough time a few years back, and I didn't know about it until he told me about a year ago. One thing that stuck with me was that he made just enough money to survive. By survive, he meant literally enough money to pay rent, utilities and the cheapest, worst food he could buy. He couldn't afford transportation. Not even the bus. He told me about a span of a few months he went through where he literally only ate water, dry noodles and peanut butter. For a few months. He worked at a restaurant and they cut his hours. He couldn't find other work. His first big reality check was that he had to sell his car to make rent 1 month. The next month he started selling other unnecessary items like his old TV, some old appliances and his nicer clothes. He got to the point where he was doing his laundry with dish soap in his sink. He couldn't afford deodorant, razors or any of the things we take for granted, so he'd steal them from the grocery store. He didn't like to do it, but he had no choice. He never got caught. When he told me all of this, I was floored. I wish he would have told me when it was happening. I would have helped any way I could. At that time, I was by no means living a fancy lifestyle, but I could have thrown him a $20 spot here and there to help him put some groceries in the house or some TP in the bathroom. Fuck, just thinking about it makes me ill. He's still poor today, but he works full-time and is happy, at least from what I see. You must understand why he didn't tell you, his friend, about his money woes. He couldn't. People in poverty too often suffer silently because they can't imagine how friends and family would think of them if they spoke up. Also, I sometimes think about how easy it would be to steal a few things from the average grocery store. Self-checkout. Just not scanning items. Obviously immoral, but easy. Edit, awesome, insightful replies, I love reading them and will upvote them all. I feel sick to my stomach for what some of you have went through/are going through, And for others, I'm glad you were able to finally make ends meet. Growing up, my family had its moments of struggle. Our public transport system at the time had tickets which were simply hole punched with the date and month, not the year. So we'd save them and store them neatly in envelopes marked by month and concession or full fare. After a few years of saving tickets, we pretty much had free train and bus travel for the next 10 years. Until they changed the ticketing system to electronically stamped tickets with barcodes. Mine were done by color and letter. I would see people with plastic baggies full of bus tickets, trying to find one that matched the current day's color and letter. In university, I used to buy a 10 to 20 pounds bags of potatoes, freeze-dried chives, and gravy mix in bulk, not the supermarket packs which are $1 for 2 cups of gravy, restaurant-sized packs that make 8 liters. That was often dinner, usually at the end of the month when money got tight. Sometimes I had even saved enough that I could have mashed potatoes made with some sort of dairy, or bacon grease. I also had a cheap tub of protein powder for weightlifters. It was gross. But I would blend it up, usually with water, hold my nose and gulp it down. It was actual protein, and slightly more healthy than a week-long diet of potatoes. From what I've read, potatoes are the one solid food that a person can get all their nutritional requirements from. They may not be happy with that 89th consecutive meal of potatoes at the end of the month, but they won't be malnourished. Handfuls of ketchup packets from McDonald's. Growing up, my mom used to tell me of a homeless guy she knew that would go into the local McDonald's and get a free cup of hot water. Then proceeded to add ketchup, salt and pepper to make himself a hobo tomato soup. Edit. Apparently a lot of people know about hobo tomato soup. Thanks for all the responses, you've given me something to do at work today. Learning the times of the day when meat, bakery, fish, vegetable and miscellaneous items are reduced to 75% at the local supermarket. I've been learning for years, but it's a good day when you find 400 grams of fresh mince for 99p, and you have warm filling food that you used to take for granted when living with parents. One thing I've noticed about being poor is that you become almost vegetarian because meat just costs too damn much. Frozen or fresh. Another thing would be buying the cheapest large container of yogurt, and mixing in jam for fruity yogurt. But that's not about being poor, that's just a good idea. Wash plasticware, spoons, forks, knives. I'm no longer poor and I still do this. It's obscene how much stuff we throw away. Yep, some of them are pretty high quality. Rotten bananas, stale bread, gray meat, and anything else the grocery is about to toss in the garbage. Giant bags of rice, beans, grain, or flour. Canned vegetables. Dried milk. I feel like few rich people even know about the grocery store bakery clearance section. Bread pudding is a good use of stale bread. So are homemade croutons. Edit. And French toast, as many people have noted. Regular toast isn't bad with stale bread, either. Stuff on layaway. My mom would always go to this store that sold heavily discounted irregulars and put it on layaway for our new school clothes. Near where I live there is one of those guys who cleans out basements and storage buildings for a living. He also has these huge yard sales 2 or 3 times a year along a main highway, pretty incredible to see. He even puts up traffic control and parking signs because so many people stop when it is busy. This guy saves up all of the kids' clothes he comes across during the year, and toward the beginning of August he has a yard sale that is mostly clothing. The moms from the local trailer parks all come to this sale and fill bags with clothes for their kids, which he then puts in his garage and holds on layaway. These mothers come to his back door and make weekly payments on used school clothes and shoes for their kids all month. At-home surgery. Used a pair of needle nose pliers, a razor blade and some antiseptic super glue to remove a cyst on my forehead. The secret is to cut it in a cat's eye shape, quickly push the skin back after you pull the cyst out, don't let it pop, and get the glue on fast. Burn like 10 bitches on a bitch boat, but it bleeds a lot and you have to get it on quick to stop the bleeding. My dad pulled his own tooth once. Said it hurt less than the tooth itself. That was one poor motherfucker, I wonder where he's at. An insanely large bag of white rice. OP said poor not Asian. This is one stereotype that holds up. I have literally never met an Asian person that did not have a huge bag of white rice somewhere in their home. About 1/3 of the things you normally buy at your local supermarket can be found at the dollar store. I highly recommend not buying your groceries at the dollar store. I was thinking more on the lines of cleaning products, dry goods, etc. Oh god. Bags of frozen veggies and a couple packs of ramen can make a family meal. I used to buy these awful frozen chicken discs wrapped in bacon. They were terrible, filled with gristle and just nasty. Eating those with rice and frozen corn was a real treat. I ate Kraft Dinner, mac and cheese, every day for about 2 to 3 years because that was all I could cook while my mom worked. I could have made SpaghettiOs, but I hated those, that for dinner, and one of those cheap 99-cent pack donuts from the grocery store for breakfast. Lunch was bologna sandwich and an apple. Finally, when I was about 10 or 11, I started teaching myself how to cook from my mom's old cookbooks, so my meals got a lot better. All carbs, and cheap fats, scalloped potatoes, rice and cheap meats. My local bus service used to have paper transfers. So you'd pay your fare, get the paper transfer that was good for an hour, and then you'd use it for the next bus. But if you were only going to the station, you'd get a paper transfer anyway, then hang around the station for an extra 5 minutes to see if anyone needed it. Conversely, you'd wait around for people getting off the bus, to see if you could score someone's transfer. This only worked if you weren't switching buses, but I got quite a few free rides this way, and gave many a transfer away. Going without meds, living in constant pain because you can't afford a prescription. I remember laying in my bed at night, and my mom would be sobbing in her bed from pain, because she couldn't afford the meds that would treat her rheumatoid arthritis or anything but generic Tylenol for her pain. I guess that's not really buying anything. But while we're down memory lane, saving your birthday money from your grandma and aunts and uncles so you can pay for a babysitting course that lets you babysit at 12. Getting a babysitting job at 12, and babysitting every day from 3 until 7 or 8, to earn some money. Giving that money to your dad so he can pay his phone bill and put gas in his car. Getting a real job at 14, working at a fast food joint so you got to eat dirt cheap. Still giving your dad money, but this time knowing it is going to the casino or the bar, but still doing it anyway. Being poor was awful. 0-10 do not recommend. Extended stay housing or motels/hotels. When you can't qualify to get an apartment because you don't have proof of income, you end up wasting more money to stay for a week at extended day housing or a cheap motel. It sucks ass having no home/being a transient. I promise myself never to be in the same situation again. I don't have an answer to your question up, but I no longer feel that I am having serious money problems after reading some of the comments you have generated through this post. In fact, I feel like a lot of Reddit would hate me after hearing what I thought my problems were. It really is very humbling to see all of this. I just learned this from a teenage burglar a couple years ago. Baseball caps with a completely straight brim and the sticker still on it were made popular because inner city kids wanted to prove they could afford brand new name brand things. It's kind of sad that's how some trends start. Edit: I was a burglary detective at the time. The kid was 18 at the time. He was stealing to buy shoes. We found over 20 new pairs when we searched his apartment. Poverty made this person what he was. I was sent to see it. He did 2 years in jail. Then he got out and started back up again doing the same thing. Now he's going back. I have a friend who, while growing up, a treat was him and his sister sharing one slice of pizza. This is in NYC. When I was growing up, my monthly treat was Burger King. Yep. We normally ate mac and cheese, SpaghettiOs, just spaghetti. Lots of pasta. My dad would get a bag of Reese's miniature peanut butter cups after his monthly paycheck and he'd eat one a night and the bag would last the month. For his birthday, he wanted a cherry pie instead of a cake. Mom saved up for the pie filling. Yeah. She saved for what was probably a $2 can of pie filling. Anyway, she bought enough for 2 pies, and when I was helping her, legitimately, I accidentally dropped one of the pies. Splat. We didn't have the money to make another one. Man, I learned that day that when the money's gone, the money's gone. Thank God we didn't stay that poor. That was horrible. Edit: thanks for the gold, wealthy Redditor. I will use it to treat myself to Burger King. Microloans. Those who need them the most get screwed the worst by the high interest rates. It's a vicious cycle that people need to be warned about. It costs a lot to be poor. Having worked in a dollar store. 1. Dollar store steaks. Seriously, steaks for $1, if that doesn't sound sketchy I don't know what does too. This is also a Hispanic thing I noticed. Fabuloso. That stuff cleans everything. I had no clue what it was till I grabbed a busted bottle to clean the bathroom one day. 3. You get real used to pasta and rice also. They are cheap and can be bought in bunches. 4. Every buy 2 sandwiches from Subway cause a third is free. Coupons like this go a long way. My last thing I noticed, and this is pretty bad, the dollar store's toilet paper is seriously better than the toilet paper my mom buys.
Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to subscribe to Master Reddit right now by clicking the subscribe button below this video.